Okay, fine. Yes. Ok- this time it's about continuity, and what one could say about continuity is that, well, I should just introduce the three concepts of it. The first one is time and change, which are basically the same because without change we wouldn't experience time, and without time I guess we wouldn't also experience change. Also, we just see change as time going on. Well, if you really think about it, both are the same for us in an intuitive way. In science, one would, of course, distinguish both, but one would basically distinguish both on the account that change is a wider concept. Uh, Not all change is due to time. Better to say, uh, on a level, if things change, just it doesn't mean that the time will continue faster, or if less changes, the time will continue less fast. That's not the case in science, I guess. But uh, on an intuitive level, it's true that the actual change happening um, is the same for us, like time is happening, or better, time is flowing, or I don't know how you say it in English. Well, time is happening, not. However, I should continue. Well, the first thing is change. The second thing would be, well, you need a kind of link between one change and another change. Therefore, something always has to remain. Something can't change during change. Because if all would always change, you would just experience the flow of things. Basically, you wouldn't even recognize anything because everything would be just a new thing and you wouldn't have any representation of the old thing. Therefore, you need a kind of continuity which leads you from one point in time to the next point in time. In our cases as humans, it's, I think, the working memory to a certain extent that helps us to bind uh, the moment of a few seconds ago with the now. Also, our sensory memory helps us with that kind of thing. But also the long-term memory. Basically, it's all memory, but I think it's the working memory in particular. Yes, I said it correctly. And mm, the third thing would, of course, be movement. Well, what is movement? Movement is change and uh, continuity, a single thing. For example, you throw a ball. You don't see that we are not like a camera in a way. We tend to not see if a ball is thrown one picture after another. It appears as one continuous movement. Of course, it's the trick of the brain. We see movement in actually. But well, our brain tricks us, but it's a good trick in a way because it's useful. And well, of course, one shouldn't just specify all those notions, all those concepts as just concepts which apply to the senses. It's it goes a little bit beyond because um, the senses are because the same can apply for thinking, for example. Uh, the 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 first thing, well, change would be that we can't think 2 seconds the same thing. We can, of course, represent the same thing, but our thinking always moves. And the continuity would be that we remember that we thought in another moment something different. And yes, and of course, the movement would be that one, well, for example, sees a ball falling down, which is, of course, also a mental activity, but also, well, for example, if one thinks of music, if, well, music is a kind of pure movement because you can't, you know that it's often just one sound at a time, but the continuation and the uh, whole of the sounds, the line of sounds in a way, make sounds to music. And yes, uh, so at last I of course can again explain how all those things are interconnected. Of course, change couldn't appear as such alone because you would just see a line of distinct attributes which would not stand in any relationship to one another, which is of course pretty similar to the thing I elaborated in my last video, to the realm of pure attributes, which is quite similar as pure change. And with continuity, of course, you have the first kind of representation, uh, and it's also necessary. But movement, of course, binds both, and without any kind of movement, you wouldn't have any kind of representation, because representation or change as such. Because if change would appear like a bit that you could remember what happened, but there is always a jump from one time to another. This would basically destroy the continuity as such, because continuity relies on the fact that, well, even if there wouldn't be any kind of movement in our thinking, continuity would never be true continuity, because it's just that it would be just a process of jumping from one thing to another thing, and because there's always something distinct from the previous thing, there wouldn't even be the true continuity, because you wouldn't have the sense of it is a continuous thing. You would just have the sense of, I have seen this thing the last time, and this time it isn't there. And this wouldn't be continuity, this would be just, well, that you see different things. And yes, this would not function quite well. Therefore, you also need the true movement to see the concept of continuity and the concept of change in its complete potential. As I told, all are in a way interlinked. Well, to recapitulate, there was continuity, there was I hate my short-term memory. I'm really bad at remembering names of things I said. That's, I don't know, that's perhaps my madness. Well, I'm actually quite good at understanding language, but I'm pretty bad at remembering such things. But, well, I should give some effort to it. Of course, there was change, there was continuity, and there was movement. And this is, of course, the part, I think I called it continuity, yes, as the last time. Not the last time, the time when I introduced the concept of particularity. Well, I didn't call it continuity, did I? Oh, sorry, I called it movement, yes, and idea. Well, of course, we now have movement 2 times, but the first movement just was the movement of particularity, and this movement is, of course, the movement of movement in a way. Yes, and the next time I will discuss idea. Also, yes, that's all, I guess. I could, of course, talk longer, but why the heck I should do it? It's ending. Also, I try to make videos which last 15 minutes, and it's a bit stupid to introduce 3 new concepts the last 2 minutes. Well, it's end. Bye, I guess.